You know this woman, don't you? Of course you do. But what about King James VI and First, the only child of her rocky marriage to the dashing Lord Darnley? King James traded his rattle for a crown as his mum was held captive and they never saw each other again. And when Queen Elizabeth I died, he inherited the English throne, becoming King of Scotland, England, Ireland and Wales, making history by uniting the kingdoms under one crown. A peaceful-ish ruler, James believed God had chosen him to rule. It was his divine right. As a Protestant, he was unpopular with Catholics, but survived Guy Fawkes and his pals' famous gunpowder plot. He was also a scholar, a poet, a theologian, and a patron of the arts. He made the Bible accessible to the English-speaking world with the King James Bible. But you knew all of that. What about the juicy stuff? Overshadowed by his charming mother and her tragic demise, there's much more to King James than meets the eye, making him one of Britain's most enigmatic monarchs. A wee bit of bling has always made a statement amongst the rich and famous, and it was no different in the 16th and 17th centuries. But no king rocked the bling quite like King James. In this portrait, he shows off his love for his wife, Anna of Denmark, and son Prince Henry by wearing their diamond-studded initials in his hat. He loved to commission jewels to commemorate important events, like the Mirror of Great Britain, a hat jewel with a whopping 55-carat diamond, which celebrated the union of the crowns. It now sits in the Louvre. The man didn't leave home without his jewels, or his jeweller, George Heriot. Nicknamed Jingle and Geordie, Heriot was known for his noisy purse full of coins. James asked Heriot to remount the Three Brothers jewel for his son Prince Charles to wear, while on a mission to Madrid to woo the Spanish princess. He even named his dog Jewel. Precious objects, personal letters, prestigious roles and honours were gifted to James's favourites. These lucky recipients had one thing in common. They were all young, attractive, male courtiers. They included the Earl of Carlisle and the Duke of Buckingham. Perhaps their flashy ruffs were gifts too. This reputation caused quite a stir, and a web of rumours incited debate about the king's sexuality. But were these men actually James's lovers, or was it just gossip, fueled by bitter rivals who were dissatisfied with their new king? Whatever the truth may be, it is buried with His Majesty at Westminster Abbey. But hold on, King James wasn't kind to everyone. Amongst the glitz and glam, James had a much darker side. Let's take a step back to when King James was the King of Scots. When a violent sea storm nearly cost him and his Danish bride their lives, King James cast blame over a group of women that he accused as witches. Under his command, the women were tried, tortured and killed in a period that became known as the North Berwick witch trials. This spurred a deadly wave of witch hunts throughout Britain, and in case anyone had any queries about witches, James penned a handy guide. Demonology offered tips on how to identify and resist these detestable slaves of the devil. Rumour has it that Shakespeare himself used a bit of its witchy research as inspiration for his play Macbeth. James's determination to protect the Stuart dynasty was a triumph, and following James's death, his son Charles commissioned one of the greatest artists of the day, Peter Paul Rubens, to paint James's divine coronation as he sailed toward heaven. Then, over 80 years later, James's dream of a fully united Britain came true, as the Parliaments of England and Scotland united in 1707, under the reign of his great-granddaughter, Queen Anne. Though our bling king probably rolled in his grave when he learned that Queen Anne preferred a more modest approach.